Welcome to episode 57 of the 301 show. My name is Charlie Wayman. We have a great show on tap for you here today as the Wild and the Frost continue their pause for the Olympics. The Vikings have some news come out with involving Kevin O'Connell, as well as potentially bringing back a wide receiver that is a free agent this year. The Wolves begin play of the second half tonight as I am recording this. And the Twins receive some unfortunate news as they look like they are already eliminated from playoff contention. All of that and more here on episode 57 of the 301 show.
From the land of 10,000 lakes and just as many heartaches, welcome to the 301 show. We're here to celebrate, commiserate, and maybe, just maybe, see a Minnesota team win it all. Whether you're dreaming of a Vikings Super Bowl, reliving the glory days of the Twins, or still recovering from the Timberwolves roller coaster, we've got you covered. This is the 301 show, where the North remembers and the passion never fades.
If you do like this video, please subscribe to the channel and leave a like down below. You can comment down below too. All of those things are free to do so. If you end up not liking the content on this channel, you can unsubscribe at a later date if you would like to. But leave a like and subscribe, and let's get into it. All right, let's start with the Nordic Report. We have 4 things to go over here. Again, we are still in the lull part of the off season. So there's not too much to go over. But the first thing, Brian Flores has been in a lawsuit against the NFL and a couple of NFL teams as well. And this is via the AP poll. And they reported that, again, so he's suing the league for racial discrimination, and the AP, or not the AP poll, excuse me, the Associated Press, just the AP, so used to college football and just saying the AP poll. But the Associated Press was talking about, or reported that the NFL wanted Brian Flores to go through the league's arbitration process rather than the legal system. But I'm going to butcher the name here. Or maybe not fully butcher it, but Judge Valerie Caproni said that the lawsuit can go to court. So they are moving on to court at this point. And so he will be on that. So again, that's just it helps the Vikings because I think there's just not really a chance that if he is suing the league that he's going to get a head coaching role. So he can just stay as the Vikings defensive coordinator for longer instead of moving on to be another team's head coach. Or if for some reason Kevin O'Connell gets fired by the Vikings, you could promote Brian Flores to be the Vikings head coach. Obviously, the Vikings are not one of the teams that he is suing. It would be a little bit awkward if you were suing your current employer for racism and racial discrimination, and they continued to hire or employ you. So that would be a little bit awkward in that sense. But yeah, that's the next step forward here in the Flores lawsuit. The next bit of news is that Jalen Nailor has a projected contract here. This was on the Pro Football Focus free agency list. He was projected a 1-year deal at $3.5 million. I think that's actually a pretty good deal for both sides. I think that's, he can go out and try and prove that he deserves to be a wide receiver 2 in the league, or he can go out and if he doesn't do that, it's still quite a bit of money for him, and he can get just $3.5 million this year. But it's a nice thing for him too, because he is guaranteed then a year of $3.5 million. And if he is, if he does go over that, is better than that, you only sign the 1-year deal and you can go out and try to get more money next year. But then that's great for the Vikings, because again, it is just a 1-year deal. So if he isn't what you thought he was going to be, you just wipe your hands and say we're done with it for next year, and not bring him back after next season. Or because he is under contract for the entirety of the year, you can try to work on some sort of extension with him. So I would love to bring back Jalen Nailor on a 1-year, $3.5 million deal. In 2025, he put up 29 receptions for 444 yards and 4 TDs, which I think is actually pretty good numbers for a wide receiver 3. When you had, Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson ahead of you, and you had J.J. McCarthy, Carson Wentz, and Max Prosmer throwing you the ball. So again, would be more than willing to bring back Jalen Nailor on a 1-year by $3.5 million deal. So then the other big news from the coaching staff of the Minnesota Vikings, the NFL has a competition committee. That committee is a committee that reviews, quote, all competitive aspects of the game, including but not limited to playing rules, roster regulations, technology, game day operations, and player protection. So it's just basically a committee that helps keep the game fair and keep the game competitive between teams, while also keeping it entertaining and safe as well, and just trying to balance all of those aspects to find the sweet spot there. But the NFL announced that they are adding 2 new members to that committee, Texans head coach DeMeco Ryans and Minnesota Vikings head coach Kevin O'Connell. So Kevin O'Connell will be on that. Again, they meet often enough, but they're not going to meet often enough to where it takes away from his duties as a head coach, because all of the competition committee members are either general managers or head coaches, or I think there might be some coordinators in that, but from what I saw, it was mostly head coaches, and then the next tier, or the next group that was the second most represented, looked like it was general managers. So obviously the competition committee is their second importance of what they are doing, whereas obviously being the GM of whatever team they are, or the head coach of whatever team they are, that is still their number one priority. So again, it shouldn't take away from KOC and his ability to be the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. Last thing here that we'll go over in the Nordic Report is a trade proposal, or a trade proposal article here that ESPN's Bill Barnwell published. It was titled "Trade Proposals That Fit for Both Teams." and the Vikings were, I believe he had 11. It was 10 or 11, something like that. And the Viking, we'll go over the Vikings role here, or trade here that he had. Again, this is just a mock trade. This is not actually like seemingly going to happen, but here are here's the trade that he has. It is with the San Francisco 49ers. It is the 49ers receiving a 2026 second round pick, a 2027 conditional fifth round pick, and a 2028 conditional third round pick. So the conditions, well, I'll tell you the other side on it too. The other side is the Vikings receive Mac Jones and a 2027 third round pick. They said that the 2027 pick, that is the conditional fifth round pick, goes from a fifth round pick to a third round pick if Mac Jones plays more than 12 games in the 2026 season. So if he plays more than 12 games this year, this upcoming year, then that would turn into a third round pick. That 2028 pick isn't actually there. He just has to throw it in there. The condition is if he re-signs or signs an extension with the Vikings and plays one or more games in the 2027 season, then that would turn into a 2028 third round pick. So it's either nothing or it is a third round pick. I personally don't love this trade. I would not really want to do it, I don't think, because I think that, one, you're giving up too much for Mac Jones at this point. I think when you have J.J. McCarthy, and I think at this point, what I want to see happen is the Vikings go out and play J.J. McCarthy for an entire season. And if he gets hurt or he's terrible again, then the 2027 draft is loaded. I think the 2027 class, assuming they all do declare for the draft, or at least most of the quarterbacks declare for the draft, I think that they are a very, very good draft class in 2027. So I would rather go after one of those quarterbacks instead of a Mac Jones. And I think that they are just better options, because even like if you start J.J. McCarthy, I think there's two really, really good options that happen. It's either that one where he sucks or gets a hurt or both all season, and you are just in the market for another quarterback in the 2027 draft, which, again, like I said, is a good draft, or is a good projectedly good quarterback draft class. Or McCarthy just takes another step forward and takes a step forward and plays, for the majority, if not all of the season, and plays well, and you have your quarterback already, and you don't have to give up, potentially, 3 day 2 picks to get a quarterback that is seemingly not going to be, doesn't have as high of a potential. Like Mac Jones has a lower ceiling but a higher floor than J.J. McCarthy. And I think I would be more willing to take the chance on the higher floor, or on the higher ceiling, on the higher ceiling at this point, because then you have a better chance to actually go out and win a Super Bowl if Brian Flores stays, and you can continue to play great defense. So I think that right now, J.J. McCarthy is the better option now. I don't want that quarterback room to be like, if it is still Carson Wentz as the backup, I want him back for the entirety of training camp. I want a better plan at the backup quarterback position because they traded for Sam Howell at the draft, and then they traded him away in training camp, and he wasn't even here for 3 full months, it seemed like. And then they brought in Carson Wentz halfway through training camp already, and it just seemed like they didn't actually have any type of plan there for the QB2. And again, I do think that Carson Wentz is a solid backup quarterback. And the reason it didn't look great is because he was hurt and KOC kept running him out injured. And I do think if he had to start multiple games again, and assuming he's healthy, he could start a few games. I don't know if you're going to want him to start all 17 games, but I think he is a good enough quarterback to start a couple of games and hope that JJ McCarthy comes back to be your everyday starter. So I would say no to this trade if I am the Vikings on Bill Barnwell, or for Bill Barnwell's trade proposal here. As for predictions, I had 0 come off the board for this one. That leaves me at 50 total correct out of 147 total predictions. 145 total predictions for 34% on the Rinkside Rundown. That 34% is second place amongst all of these segments here on the 301 show. I've got 3 coming on the board here. They are season long, or 2 off-season ones, I guess, and then a season-long prediction. But they're more long-term predictions than ones that'll come off the board immediately. So the 3 coming on the board, I said Mac Jones will be traded this offseason, but it will be to an AFC team. Said the Vikings will be ranked top 10 in yard, and I meant to say defense, the Vikings defense. I'll make sure I adjust that in here. I think the defense is going to play well again this season. So I meant to say the Vikings defense there, but it will be ranked in the top 10 in yardage, points, and or turnovers. So if it is just one of those, this is correct. If it's 2 of the 3, it is correct. Or if it's all 3, it is correct. And then the third and final prediction is that I just have an inkling that Harrison Smith is going to be back in 2026. So Harrison Smith will be back on the Vikings roster in 2026. Moving on to the Wolves' Den here. Again, we've got a few pieces of news to go over, and then a couple of things about Anthony Edwards that will wrap up this segment at the end. But we'll look ahead here. The Wolves, again, play their first game out of the All-Star break tonight at home at 6:30, Friday, February 20th, against the Dallas Mavericks. They then play on Sunday, February 22nd at 6 p.m. at home against the Philadelphia 76ers. That ends their 6-game homestand that was split on either ends of the All-Star break before they go out west, and they will take on the Portland Trailblazers in Portland on Tuesday, February 24th at 9 p.m., and then the Clippers in LA at 9 p.m. on Thursday, February 26th. So those are their next 4 games here. The 2 pieces of news here about just roster movement. So the first one is that Johnny Uzeng is getting released. He was averaging about 2 points per game here. So he was very much like a end of the bench, not even in really the rotation piece. He was not getting a ton of playing time. He was basically this year's garbage time where Luka Garza got a bunch of garbage time game or garbage time playing time, whereas that was Johnny Juzang this year. The other roster move is that they officially signed Mike Conley to come back with the Timberwolves here. So that was the other big piece of roster news. Another piece of news here is about the TV situation. This is via Michael Rand of the Star Tribune. FanDuel Sports Network, which is the network that has the games for that they air the Wolves games, the Wild games, and the Lynx games. They used to air Twins games before the Twins got Twins TV. They have missed the last two payments to the Timberwolves. The Wolves have not been paid in the new year. And this is a direct quote. This is a direct quote from Michael Rand here. He said, barring the last minute emergence of a path forward for Main Street, it appears the Wolves, Wild, and Lynx will be looking for a new local broadcast partner for their next regular season. So whenever their next regular seasons are, which the Lynx obviously are a lot closer to that, with their season starting shortly, or hopefully starting shortly. We'll talk about their CBA here momentarily. But next fall with the Wild and Wolves, it looks like FanDuel Sports Network will no longer carry Wolves and Wild games, and then the Lynx games whenever they get back to play. So again, this has just been an ongoing kind of dispute, and it seems like it's going on with more teams than just the Wolves across the NBA at this point, as they have missed payments to I believe it said 12 other teams other than the Wolves, so 13 teams across the league. So again, it's just it seems like their spiral is just continuing down the drain at this point. So yeah, just look for an announcement. We'll probably bring it up later. It was probably not a great sign to start the Laurie and A-Rod tenure here in Minnesota as the new owners, that they're now, a major source of revenue isn't going to be showing up in the Wolves bank account, the corporate bank account. So that is a bit concerning, as I am also kind of watching the U.S. men's hockey game going on in the background here. It's why I turned the other way to film this episode, because I did not want any of it in the background of this episode, because the NBC and the Olympics are very strict on what gets out online. So yeah, we'll continue to update basically the FanDuel Sports Network saga here, and where the Wolves go, and I guess the Wild too go next. We've got final two things here for the Wolves part of the Wolves Den. There was the NBA player rankings, basically like the player power rankings, what came out, and Ant was ranked at number 9 in those player rankings, and I think just based off of a couple of the players ahead of him, I'm not arguing that 9 is the wrong spot. It's just, if they think he is above a couple players, he should definitely be above the other couple players ahead of him right now. So I'll list a couple players, or I'll list the 8 players ahead of him. in order of their ranking too. So number 1 is Nikola Jokic. Absolutely should be ranked number 1. Like that, in my mind, makes sense. The number 2 is SGA. I personally don't know if I think he is the number 2 player in the world. I think 3 and 4 might have a case to be ranked above him, but again, I'm not being ranked ahead of Anthony Edwards. I'm not complaining about that part of it. Number 3 is Luka Doncic. I think he has a case to be made that he should be above SGA. And number 4, again, this one is maybe it's just too early on in his career, but I think he will be the number 1 player in the league at some point in his career, and that is Victor Wembanyama is number 4. Again, understandable that he's at number 4 right now, but I think he might actually have a case to be ranked higher than number 4. And then number 5, again, I still agree that should be the top 4 for sure. I think should be ranked ahead of Anthony Edwards. Number 5 is Giannis Antetokounmpo. I think probably, should be ranked ahead of Anthony Edwards. But 6, 7, and 8 are where I question the list right now of why they are ranked ahead of Anthony Edwards. And those, number 6 is Kawhi Leonard. Number 7 is Cade Cunningham. And number 8 is Donovan Mitchell. Don't get me wrong. They are fantastic players. And I just think that Anthony Edwards is better than those 3. If you wanted to rank Ant at number 9 and put Steph Curry, LeBron James, just because of their legacy, ahead of Anthony Edwards, then I can understand that argument. But Anthony Edwards was the centerpiece on a team that went to back-to-back conference finals. And they, like, this Wolves team is nowhere near a top 6 team in the Western Conference, a top 10 team in the NBA without Anthony Edwards. And I just think that he should be ranked ahead of those 3, Kawhi, Cade, and Donovan Mitchell. I think Anthony Edwards deserves to be above those 3. So that was, the player power ranking there. We have a couple of quotes from Anthony Edwards from the All-Star game and the All-Star break that I think are getting blown completely out of proportion here as they, were caught on basically a hot mic. So he was talking to, and I forget off the top of my head who he was talking to, but it was one of the Atlanta Hawks All-Stars, if not the only Atlanta Hawks All-Star. And he was picked up on a hot mic saying, "I can't wait to go home. And you guys have a lot of good wings," which again, wings is player position. And so he was saying, you guys have a lot of good players at this position on your roster. So I think there are Hawks fans that are saying Anthony Edwards is not happy with the Timberwolves and he wants out of Minnesota and wants to come home because he's from Atlanta, he's from Georgia, went to school at UGA, and he is wanting to go play for the Hawks, and he's wanting to go back to Georgia. I don't think that's what he was saying. First of all, he still lives in Georgia in the offseason. The Wolves played or the All-Star game was on Sunday. The Wolves' first game back is tonight on Friday the 20th. I think he was saying, I can't wait to go home on a break. Like, because we get a couple days off here, I'm going to go home to see my family. I think that's what he meant by I can't wait to go home. And then I think he was just more complimenting the other, the roster of the Atlanta Hawks. Like, I don't think that is anywhere. Like, I don't think there's any truth to he wants to go play for the Atlanta Hawks at this point. So let's Hawks fans, let's calm down. Let's take a deep breath and relax here a little bit. But yeah, I think that is just the most blown out of proportion report I've seen in a while, and hot mic that I have seen in a while. So I think Wolves fans, don't worry. I think we can all, again, take a deep breath and relax a little bit. We move over to the Lynx. There's a couple pieces of news here for the Lynx, and one of them is for the WNBA as a whole that I alluded to earlier. They have not come to an agreement on the collective bargaining agreement between the WNBA Players Association and the WNBA themselves. So they continue to basically be locked out and not actually playing. But the season may not happen this year, or it might be a shortened season. With that being said, the WNBA is still preparing like they are going to have a season, as they did come out with the schedule. And the one cool thing is that the Lynx will play a preseason game in Kansas City. That is the other piece of news here for the Lynx. They're going to Kansas City to play a preseason game. So yeah, that's all I have here for the Wolves Den. Don't have any predictions coming off the board for Wolves Den. They are at 44 out of 137 for 32 total correct, or 32% correct on all time. That 32% sits in third amongst the four segments on predictions here. So Nordic Report is second, and the Wolves Den is third. 3 predictions going on the board here. I said that the Wolves, the 4 games that I mentioned, those are the last 4 games in February. And I realized I said in March here, so that is a typo. I meant to say February. So the Wolves will win the rest of their games in February. They'll end on a 4-game winning streak post All-Star break. And then the Wolves will end the regular season on a 3+ game winning streak. So they'll be on a bit of a hot streak going into the playoffs. And then the Wolves play in Oklahoma City on March 15th. And I think the Wolves will win that game. So that is my last prediction for this segment of this episode. All right, on to Rinkside Rundown here. The third team segment of the episode. We have a few things to go over here. We'll go over the U.S. Men's team having played. They are in the bracket play now. They won their last 2 pool play games by winning 6-3 over Denmark and 5-1 over Germany. Where in that Germany game, we got maybe one of, if not the best chirps I have ever heard in my life, when Matthew Tkachuk told Leon Draisaitl, "You're always the bridesmaid, but never the bride," and proceeded to win that game by 4 goals. Then the first game of the bracket play in the quarterfinals for the U.S. Again, they got a first round bye where a couple teams had to play in games. The U.S. took on Sweden, which was on paper and in reality not a great matchup because you were going up against a team that, on paper was the third best team coming into the tournament behind the U.S. and Canada. So just 1 or 2 bad games dropped them down to the 7 seed in this. So they took on Sweden. The game went to overtime and tied at 1. And then Quinn Hughes stayed out on the ice. He waved off a change and ended up winning it in overtime for the U.S. So again, Minnesota Wild, more Minnesota Wild players are absolutely coming through on this, or in this Olympics. They are taking on Slovakia in the semifinals, where, again, as I am recording this, it is the first intermission of that game, and the U.S. is winning 2-0 at the first intermission. On the women's side, again in U.S. Hockey, they beat Sweden in the semifinals. So the U.S. U.S. hockey might be public enemy number 1 in the country of Sweden. This year, they move on to play Canada in the gold medal game, where Canada takes a 1-0 lead in the second period, and then with 2 minutes left, the U.S. had pulled their goalie. Again, that goal in the second period was the first goal allowed by the U.S. since the second period of the first game of pool play in against Czechia. Then the U.S. has to pull their goalie with under 2 minutes left, and Hillary Knight ties the game with the empty net down at the other end on just a nasty tip between the legs that ended up in the back of the net. Then she, or in overtime, which again, another just kind of really fun and cool tidbit here about Hillary Knight. She is for sure the first U.S. player, men or women, to have played in 5 Olympic games as a hockey player, and the so she also had announced that it was her last Olympic Games, so she went out on top, or she went out having scored a goal to tie it, and ended up going out on top because in overtime the U.S. ended up scoring to take down Canada. That was an assist by Taylor Heisey to Minnesota Frost member Taylor Heisey. So yeah, the U.S. men's team are in the semis trying to repeat what the U.S. women did and win gold against Canada in the gold medal game. But yeah, that's the Olympic update as of now. But the Minnesota Wild rumors here are buzzing at this point, because the trade deadline is, I believe it is the first Thursday of March, I believe. Can't remember the exact date, but it's in that first week of March. And so there are trade rumors coming up here. They'll have about a week in between when players come back, and week and a half maybe between when players come back from the Olympic break to when and games start to when the trade deadline is. And again, the on the Olympic break, the rosters are on a freeze, so you can't trade players in the Olympic break. So the players in the Olympics don't have to worry about that, and then the players not in the Olympics can go on vacation and just relax in the time off. But there are some rumors flying around, and those rumors are based off of reports coming out. So RG.org's James Murphy put out a report that said the New Jersey Devils general manager Tom Fitzgerald is seeking a hockey trade to shake up the Devils roster. And he said he wants to send a message to the players that nobody is guaranteed a roster spot going forward. So based off of that report, there are now rumors online that Jack Hughes, who is a New Jersey Devil, he's the younger brother of Quinn Hughes, is on the table for the Wild to trade for. And I do think that is a possibility because, again, as we saw at the or when Quinn Hughes got traded from Vancouver to the Wild, when Quinn got traded here, everybody was saying that the Hughes brothers wanted to just play together. And everyone was thinking, well, there's two Hughes brothers already on the Devils, so it would make sense that Quinn would just go there. But on the other hand, I'm sure they want to win a Stanley Cup, and I believe that the Wild are a lot closer, especially if you add a Quinn or add a Jack Hughes. The Wild are a lot closer to winning a Stanley Cup than the Devils are. So I think just what would a Jack Hughes trade look like? I think this is where, again, the reports that we have seen in the last few weeks of them of the Wild being okay with trading Jesper Wallstedt come into play here for me. I think that the Devils are looking for a young goaltender as well. They're looking to get younger and have a solid goaltender. And I think you could look at trading Jesper Wallstedt to the Devils, and you'd probably have to give up a little bit more here to get Jack Hughes because he is that good of a player. But that could be your main building block there of Jesper Wallstedt going to the New Jersey Devils, and you're still then have Philip Gustafsson as your starting goalie, and you have again I keep butchering his name, Lavi, I think is Samuel Lavi, the AHL goalie for the Wild. He's the Iowa Wild starting goalie, who is again playing in this game for Slovakia against the U.S. And he is the only reason I think that Slovakia is even in this position to have a chance at medaling at this point. So you could have him be the backup, or again, like the report said, of you could have Marc-Andre Fleury back up for the rest of this year, and then Sam Halavi gets playing time next year or something like that. Like there's a lot of ways to work this at this point. So I think that this is a long shot, but still a real possibility. I think there's those two things are not mutually exclusive. There's a very small sliver of overlapping circles of it being a real actual possibility, and it's still being a long shot too. So I think this fits perfectly in that little sliver of area at this point. Yeah, just we'll keep an eye on this as we continue here, and again, that would be fantastic for the Wild too, because Jack Hughes is a center, and that would help out, the need to find secondary scoring outside of, Boldy and Kaprizov, or I guess tertiary scoring outside of Boldy and Kaprizov, and you would have two solid lines of forward. So Jack Hughes is a name, I think, to actually keep on the radar at this point. I think, like we've talked about in the Nordic Report with Joe Burrow possibly coming to Minnesota, I think that these are both of them are long shots, but I think Jack Hughes coming to Minnesota is more of a possibility than the Joe Burrow going to the Vikings. So keep that just in mind here as we come up on the trade deadline. Had two Olympic predictions come off the board here. The first one is that Taylor Heisey scores multiple goals in the gold medal game. That one was incorrect. She had an assist, but no goals. And then I said the U.S. women's team wins the gold medal, which they obviously did. That brings it up to 47 out of 111 total predicted, and that is 42%. And that is number one of the four categories. So, that is so far the best category being the Rinkside Rundown. 3 going on the board here. I think Jack Hughes is traded before this year's trade deadline. I don't know where he will be traded, but I think he is going to be traded before this year's trade deadline. I think either Sam Lavai or Jesper Wallstedt will be traded before this year's trade deadline. I think one of those two goalies will be traded. And I think the Wild finish in the top 2 in the Central Division in 2026. I think it probably will be number 2, but I don't want to get burned just in case Colorado has some sort of tank here in the second half of the year and the Wild somehow win the division. But they will finish top 2 in the Central Division in 2026. All right, moving on to the final team segment of today's episode. Got 3 things to go over here. 2 things are coming out of there are two bits of news from Declan Goff at the Score North Twin Show, and then a thing that the team put out too, which is very unfortunate. But we will start with the good stuff from Declan Goff. He said first thing is that Byron Buxton is looking like he's going to play more early in spring training before going to the World Baseball Classic. Usually guys that have like a good or pretty good chance or are basically locks of making the 26-man roster won't play a ton right away and use it more as like a warm-up versus are you going to make the roster. But Buxton, obviously he's going to make the roster. He's going to be on this team to start the year. Again, knock on wood. But he is going to start earlier or will play more earlier this year because he is going to the World Baseball Classic. He is using spring training as the way to get warmed up for that, and then he's going to play more high-level baseball at the World Baseball Classic. And so, and Declan Goff also said that this looks like it's going to leave some room for Walker Jenkins to get more time during spring training, which again I think is fantastic because I think it's better, even if it is spring training, it's better to get these younger guys just more practice time and more spring training game action against better competition, just to fully flesh out where they're at and fully and get them just, again, like I said, more practice time against better competition. So Walker Jenkins looks like he'll play more. He in the minor leagues, he's played center field, he's played right field. So I would imagine they're going to move him around the outfield just to see exactly what suits him the best on this big league team. And again, I think you got to have some chemistry with, if you're a corner outfield spot, I think you got to have some chemistry, at least with the center fielder, and then the center fielder with the 2 corner outfield spots. So I think they'd love to see him too, just how he plays with some of the guys that are going to get more playing time in the corner outfield spots, or with Buxton before he goes to the World Baseball Classic. So I think it's good that for that reason too, of why he is getting more playing time. The other thing that Declan Goff was saying too is he was talking to Derek Shelton, who is the new manager of the Minnesota Twins after Rocco Baldelli got fired. And Derek Shelton's new philosophy has 2 new philosophies with this team, or has 2 philosophies with this team that he is bringing in as the new manager. And one is just structure, and that structure being just, again, trying to teach the young guys how to compete and play and carry themselves at a big league level, which again is fantastic, because we've seen that so many times with this team. The really, again, like I've said, starting with a Miguel Sano, where they just kill it at AAA and then come up to the bigs and maybe have a good couple of months or a year at their rookie year. And then teams make adjustments on guys, and they struggle after that. And it seems like the last few star players for the Twins, or potential star players for the Twins, don't know how to overcome that second year hurdle. And if you bring in a structure like that, like Derek Shelton has, then it's only going to be good, I think, for the young guys. So structure is a big thing with Derek Shelton. Also, the second philosophy, and this kind of ties into with the structure philosophy as well. Again, this is all still via the at least this news here is via Declan Goff from the Score North Twin Show. The second bit of news is they keep going until it's done right, and they need to, when they're doing drills and they're practicing, they need to make sure they get it right and not just, it's good enough. No, you need to do it right. And that's, I think, part of the structure of no, this is the big leagues. We will keep going until it's done right, because these things are done a certain way in the major leagues versus they might be done a different way at AAA. And there's not as high of expectations at AAA, and there's not as high as standards at AAA, but there is at the big league level, and it's way better competition at the big league level too. So you need to be that much more prepared at the big league level. So structure and keep going until it's done right are the two main philosophies of Derek Shelton. But the other piece of news here, and this is the biggest piece of news, is that General Manager Jeremy Zoll told reporters down in Fort Myers that Pablo López has a significant tear in his right UCL. And it did come out in a report too that the Twins put out that he is going to undergo surgery. It came out as I was recording the other segments of this show. So I did not get a chance to fully look into exactly what type of surgery he needs, but he does need surgery and will miss the entirety of the 2026 season. And a quote from Pablo López here, which I think speaks to his character a lot. And I'll read the quote here, and I'll give you my thoughts on the quote. But the quote is, I already feel like I'm letting a lot of people down. I'm letting myself down, I'm letting the Twins down, and I'm letting my family down, is the quote from Pablo López. So a couple things off of that. First of all, Pablo, you are probably the last person to let the Twins down over the last couple of years. Like, yes, you were hurt last year for a few months, and you're not going to pitch for this entire season. But like the struggles of the last couple of years have not been Pablo Lopez's fault. I don't think a lot of it, no, I don't think it's 0%, but I don't think a lot of it is just the players' faults in general. I'm looking more at ownership and front office, and placing more of the blame there than on more, less blame on the players as a whole. And specifically, I'm not putting any blame on Pablo Lopez for the struggle. Would it have helped? Would they have won a couple more games last year if he had pitched? Yeah, but I'm not going to blame him for that. Like, I don't think anything is helpful if you blame Pablo Lopez. I think if you want to single out a player, you single out Carlos Correa before he got traded, because he seemed to just make it like this locker room toxic or the clubhouse toxic more than anyone else. And you blame the young guys not stepping up as much or continuing to progress. You blame that more than you blame Pablo Lopez. But I will say this quote here proves the point that Pablo wants to compete. He's like, I don't care that you went out and traded the entire bullpen and half the team last year. I am going to try to win games. And it proves my point of coaching staffs, and this is any sport, coaching staffs and players don't tank. Front offices tank by trading away players. And I just think that he is absolutely the type of guy that is going to try to compete day in and day out, and he is going to try and compete whenever he is on the mound. And he is, I think this year, before he got hurt, he was probably in the top 3 or 4 players for who is the most important Twin for the success of this team this year. And it's between the top 4 for sure are him, Joe Ryan, Royce Lewis, and Byron Buxton. Those are the top, those at least before he got hurt, were the top 4 most important players on this team. And you expect, just because that's what you expect out of Pablo Lopez, you expect him to be, good to great. And he was the ace of this team. And I think too, it is a blow that he is out for the entire year. But again, you're not blaming Pablo Lopez. You can't blame him for getting hurt at this point, because from the reports that I have seen, it was like a freak thing where it's not like he dropped something on his foot or something like that. Like it wasn't like a freak thing like that where it's like but it was during a practice. It was while he was on the mound pitching. The training staff had to come out and talk to him and basically walk him off the field. So it seemed like it was just one of those freak accidents that there is nobody to blame at that point. So, yeah, Pablo Lopez out for the entirety of 2026. Moving on here to predictions. Didn't have anything come off the board at this point for Target Field Talkers. So that remains my total at 30 total correct out of 101 total predicted. We're rounding up to 30%. Then 3 coming on the board here. Again, that is the last place. 30% is in last place for the 4 segments. The 3 coming on the board here is the U.S. wins the gold medal at the World Baseball Classic. In the World Baseball Classic, at some point of the tournament, Byron Buxton hits at least 1 home run, and Byron Buxton has a multi-hit game at some point in the tournament as well. All right, moving on to the final team segment of today's episode, the Power Rankings segment, which we take a topic in Minnesota sports and rank them from 1 to 10. Past lists have been the top 10 weather moments in Minnesota sports history, the best comebacks, the top 10 lifers, and the top 10 glue guys. So those are the couple of the past ones that we have done. Today's episode is inspired by the girls' state hockey tournament happening right now and the boys' section tournaments that are happening around the state in high school. So we are going the best high school boys hockey tourney games of all time, the top 10. So again, if you have any ideas like that, keep them family friendly, and we will do them. We have used fan suggestions before in the past, and we will continue to do that as long as we get more ideas like that. So, we will go on here to the game, or the top 10 list at this point. As again, I'm watching the U.S. Slovakia game. The U.S. just scored to make it 3-0 in the second period. Coming in at number 10 here is the 1978 championship. This was before they split it to Class A and Class AA, so there is just one championship for everyone. This was Edina East taking on Grand Rapids, so it was a Metro team versus a Northern team. The game went into double overtime, where Edina East won 5-4. The next game we have at number 9 is the 2005 Class Single A championship, where Warroad took on Totino Grace. The game again also went to double overtime, and Warroad ended up winning 4-3 in double overtime. Number 8 is the 2010 Class A semifinals, which was between the Hermantown Hawks and the Matamidi Zephyrs. The game went to overtime with a final score of 7-6. Hermantown would take down Matamidi. At number 7, we stick with the same year, the same round to the semifinals. So this was a crazy Friday day of the state tournament that year. But 2010 is the Class AA semifinals, as the Minnetonka Skippers took on the Hill Murray Pioneers. Minnetonka won 2-1 over Hill Murray in quadruple overtime. As you can see, that there is a pattern going on here. Absolutely love the overtime games and have a bias for walk-off goals. So that game comes in at number 7. At number 6, we have a recent one. This was just last year, 2025. It is the Class Single A championship, where East Grand Forks took on St. Cloud Cathedral. That game went into overtime. St. Cloud Cathedral tied it with 47 seconds left in the third period, but then East Grand Forks scored in overtime to take home the championship, winning 2-1. We'll move on here. I'll pull up the top 5. You can see the 6 through 10 there for one last moment, and then we'll get on to the top 5. Top five. Coming in at number 5 is the 2022 Class AA championship. This was Maple Grove and Andover. Andover was looking to win both the girls and the boys tournaments. Both teams scored 2 goals in the third period, so 4 goals were scored in the third period. Andover tied it with 1 minute and 50 seconds left in the third, and then they ended up going on to win it in double overtime, 6-5 over Maple Grove. At number 4, we go to last year. This last year, again, 2025, the Class AA championship. This is the only game, I'll give you a little hint going forward here. This is the only game that is not an overtime game. That is Moorhead winning over Stillwater 7-6. When it's that high scoring and it's the finals, got to give it some love here. Again, that is one of the best state champion teams in Moorhead, with the Cullens and the Crafts, and just fantastic team up there in Moorhead. They're looking to do it again and repeat as champions in AA this year too. Moving on to number 3, we have the oldest game. We'll go furthest back in time here. It is the 1995 quarterfinal game between Minneapolis South and Thief River Falls. And you might be wondering why a quarterfinal game is on this list. But that is because this game went into 11 overtimes. 11 overtimes. They played 14 periods of hockey. Now, the caveat there was the overtime period. Each overtime period was only 5 minutes, so I could not put this one any higher on the list. If it was, the full the way they do it now, where it's 8-minute overtime and then a 17-minute period after that would definitely probably be number 1 on this list. But they were only 4-minute or 5-minute overtimes, but there was 11 of them, so that comes in at number 3. Number 2 here, we stick in the 1900s. We go to the 1996 Class AA semifinals, Apple Valley, Duluth East. These were the overtime, these overtime rules, but it was a 5 overtime game. The game ended after midnight. It looked like it ended after 1 a.m. too. Apple Valley took down Duluth East 5-4. And at number 1, I have said this for a while, I think this is the best high school hockey game ever, regardless of if it's the state tournament or not. But at number 1 is the 2011 Class AA Championship. Again, you had the Metro School in Eden Prairie, and you had the Northern School in Duluth East. And EP ended up winning that game 3-2 in triple overtime. That'll do it for this week's episode of the 301 Show, episode 57. We do thank you for watching this one. Again, like the video if you did enjoy it. Even if you disagreed with me, still like the video if you still enjoyed watching the content. Subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Also, you can watch the 301 banter interviews that I do. Comment down below where you agree or disagree with me. And then you can also email the show with any questions, comments, or concerns. It's frozennorth30@gmail.com. You can also leave that, or you can also look for that email down below in the description as well. We will see you next time here on the 301 Show for episode 58. Peace.